What if a single speech could inspire an ordinary mechanic to dedicate an entire year to building a vehicle that looks like an armored military machine? Could one man's determination become the symbol of a nation's growing belief in its own talent? In Burkina Faso, these questions are no longer theoretical. They have become the remarkable story of Abdouah Ouedraogo, an experienced auto mechanic from Bobo-Dioulasso, whose work has captured attention far beyond his small workshop. In reality, it was designed and assembled with limited resources by a mechanic who relied on years of practical experience rather than advanced industrial equipment. Abdouah spent nearly 12 months developing his prototype, overcoming financial obstacles and technical challenges that would have discouraged many others. His goal was never personal fame. Instead, he wanted to use his skills to contribute to his country's efforts during a difficult period marked by serious security challenges. According to Abdouah himself, everything began after listening to a speech delivered by President Ibrahim Traoré. Hearing the president call on Burkina Faso citizens to believe in their own abilities made him reflect on his own responsibility. If soldiers were risking their lives to protect the nation, he asked himself what contribution he could make from his workshop. That simple question transformed the way he viewed his profession. He no longer saw himself as someone who merely repaired vehicles. He saw an opportunity to create something that could serve his country. But this story is about far more than a homemade armored-style vehicle. It raises important questions about innovation, self-reliance, and the future of local industry in Burkina Faso. Can individual determination spark a broader movement of technological creativity? Could small workshops become the birthplace of solutions designed by Africans for African challenges? In today's video, we will explore the remarkable journey of Abdouah Ouedraogo, the influence of Ibrahim Traoré's message, and why this extraordinary project has become a powerful symbol of hope for many people across Burkina Faso. If you enjoy thoughtful stories about African innovation and development, be sure to subscribe for more. For nearly 2 decades, Abdouah Ouedraogo built his reputation as a skilled automobile mechanic in Bobo-Dioulasso. Day after day, he repaired engines, restored damaged vehicles, and solved mechanical problems with the experience he had gained through years of hard work. Nothing suggested that his small workshop would one day produce a vehicle that would attract attention across Burkina Faso. Yet behind every repair job, he had developed something far more valuable than tools. He had built the confidence to create, adapt, and solve complex engineering challenges with limited resources. That confidence was tested when he decided to build a vehicle inspired by the appearance of an armored military carrier. The project demanded far more than technical knowledge. It required persistence, sacrifice, and countless hours of work. Using materials he could obtain locally and relying on his own mechanical skills, Abdouah spent nearly a full year turning his vision into reality. Every stage of construction depended on the money he could personally invest, forcing him to progress slowly whenever resources became scarce. He later explained that with sufficient financial support, the same project could have been completed in only 6 or 7 months. For Abdouah, however, the greatest obstacle was not the complexity of the design, it was the lack of financial backing. While many people came to observe his work, few offered practical assistance. Instead of allowing disappointment to stop him, he remained focused on completing the prototype. He believed that anyone determined to accomplish something meaningful must learn to ignore discouraging voices and continue moving forward despite criticism. Throughout the entire process, Abdouah insisted that his motivation was never personal recognition or financial gain. He wanted to use the profession he had practiced for nearly 20 years to contribute to his country's future. Rather than standing on the sidelines while others defended Burkina Faso, he believed he also had a responsibility to serve using the skills he possessed. His workshop became proof that patriotism can take many forms. Sometimes it is expressed not on the battlefield, but through dedication, craftsmanship, and the courage to transform an ambitious idea into reality. According to Abdouah Ouedraogo, the turning point in his life did not begin with a new machine or a large financial investment. It began with a speech. While listening to President Ibrahim Traoré encourage Burkinabe citizens to rely on their own knowledge and abilities, Abdouah realized that defending a nation was not the responsibility of soldiers alone. Every citizen possessed a skill that could strengthen the country in one way or another. As an experienced mechanic, he believed his contribution should come through innovation rather than words. He later explained that the president's message completely changed his way of thinking. Instead of asking what the government could do for him, he began asking what he could do for Burkina Faso. He thought about the soldiers risking their lives on the front lines every day and concluded that those working safely behind the lines also had a duty to help. Since he understood mechanics better than anything else, he decided to transform that knowledge into something useful for his country. This is perhaps the most remarkable aspect of Abdouah's story. President Ibrahim Traoré did not personally design the vehicle, provide the funding, or supervise the project. The prototype was the result of Abdouah's own experience, determination, and countless hours of work. The president's influence was different. His words inspired one citizen to believe that his professional skills could serve a greater purpose. That distinction is important because it shows how leadership can encourage initiative without replacing individual responsibility. At the same time, Abdouah's experience also demonstrates that inspiration alone is not enough. A powerful speech may motivate people to dream bigger, but transforming those dreams into reality requires persistence, technical knowledge, financial support, and an environment where innovation can continue to grow. His vehicle stands as evidence that one person's determination can produce extraordinary results, yet it also raises a larger question for Burkina Faso. If one mechanic could achieve this with limited resources after being inspired by a single speech, what could hundreds of engineers, mechanics, and young inventors accomplish if they were given proper training, investment, and long-term support? That question may ultimately become far more significant than the vehicle itself. Although Abdouah Ouedraogo's armor-style vehicle attracted widespread attention, it was never the only example of local innovation emerging in Burkina Faso. His story became part of a much broader conversation about the country's growing confidence in its own talent. Across social media and local media reports, more stories began to surface about inventors, mechanics, programmers, and young entrepreneurs who were developing practical solutions with limited resources. Together, these individual efforts created the impression that a new spirit of creativity was beginning to spread throughout the country. Among the examples frequently discussed was a locally developed landmine detection device designed to improve safety for security forces operating in dangerous areas. Another innovation that received attention was Donia Browser, a software project created by a young Burkinabe developer who hoped to demonstrate that African programmers could build digital products capable of competing in an increasingly global technology market. Other local inventors introduced practical machines designed for everyday challenges, including equipment powered by solar energy and devices intended to improve public sanitation. While these projects differed greatly in purpose, they shared one important characteristic. They were all created by individuals who refused to believe that meaningful innovation had to come from outside Africa. This growing collection of inventions helped transform Abdouah's vehicle into something larger than a personal achievement. It became one example within a wider movement encouraging Burkinabe citizens to recognize the value of local knowledge and practical skills. Instead of waiting for multinational companies or foreign institutions to solve every problem, many innovators began asking how they could contribute using the experience and resources already available in their own communities. However, it is important to remain realistic. These projects are still individual initiatives rather than evidence of a fully developed national innovation system. Many inventors continue to face similar challenges, including limited funding, restricted access to advanced equipment, and few opportunities to test or commercialize their ideas. Even so, their work demonstrates that creativity already exists across Burkina Faso. The real challenge is no longer discovering talented people. It is building an environment capable of helping those talented individuals transform promising ideas into sustainable industries that can benefit both Burkina Faso and the wider West African region. Behind every inspiring invention lies a reality that is far less visible than the finished product. For Abdouah Ouedraogo, the greatest challenge was never finding the motivation to build his armored-style vehicle. It was finding the resources to keep building. Every stage of the project depended on his personal finances, forcing him to pause whenever money ran short. He later explained that if adequate funding had been available from the beginning, the vehicle could have been completed in only 6 or 7 months instead of nearly a full year. Financial limitations were only part of the problem. Like many independent inventors, Abdouah worked without access to specialized research facilities, advanced engineering equipment, or professional testing centers. Every improvement required patience, experimentation, and practical problem solving inside a small workshop. While his determination allowed him to overcome many technical obstacles, some challenges simply could not be solved without outside support. This illustrates a reality faced by many innovators across developing economies. Talent alone cannot replace the need for investment and technical infrastructure. Abdouah also spoke about another obstacle that receives far less attention. He recalled that many people watched his progress with curiosity, yet some questioned his efforts instead of encouraging them. Rather than allowing criticism to discourage him, he chose to remain focused on his objective. His experience demonstrates that innovators often need confidence as much as financial assistance, especially during the long period when success is still uncertain. His story therefore highlights an important lesson for Burkina Faso. Discovering talented individuals is only the first step. Turning their ideas into practical solutions requires an entire support system that includes funding, technical advice, product testing, and partnerships with educational institutions and industry. Without that ecosystem, many promising ideas may never progress beyond a single prototype. Abdouah's vehicle represents more than one man's determination. It reveals both the enormous creative potential that already exists in Burkina Faso and the urgent need to create conditions where that potential can continue to grow and deliver lasting benefits for society. President Ibrahim Traore's influence on this story cannot be measured by the number of machines he built or the amount of money invested in Abdouah Ouedraogo's project. Its significance lies elsewhere. According to Abdouah's own account, the decision to begin building his armored-style vehicle came after listening to one of the president's speeches encouraging Burkinabe citizens to believe in their own abilities and contribute to the nation's future. That message convinced him that every profession, including mechanical work, could become a form of national service. This distinction is important. Ibrahim Traore did not design the prototype, supervise its construction, or personally finance the project. The vehicle remained a product of Abdouah's experience, persistence, and technical skills. However, the president's message gave those skills a new purpose. Instead of seeing himself only as a mechanic repairing vehicles, Abdouah began to see himself as someone capable of creating solutions for his country. His story illustrates how leadership can inspire initiative while leaving responsibility in the hands of ordinary citizens. Beyond individual inspiration, Ibrahim Traore has repeatedly emphasized the importance of strengthening local production, developing domestic industries, and encouraging Burkinabe talent. These priorities have helped shape a national conversation about self-reliance and technological development. For many supporters, the goal is not to reject international cooperation, but to ensure that Burkina Faso develops the knowledge and industrial capacity needed to solve more of its own challenges. At the same time, inspiration alone cannot guarantee long-term progress. A speech may encourage innovation, but sustainable development also requires investment, technical education, transparent institutions, and opportunities for inventors to refine their ideas. Abdouah's experience demonstrates both the power and the limits of inspiration. His achievement proves that talented individuals already exist across Burkina Faso. The next challenge is creating an environment where those individuals can receive the support necessary to transform isolated inventions into industries capable of strengthening the country's economy, creating jobs, and encouraging future generations to innovate with confidence. As Abdouah Ouedraogo's project gained attention, it also sparked debate far beyond Burkina Faso. Some foreign commentators questioned whether a handmade armored-style vehicle could represent meaningful progress for a country facing serious economic and security challenges. Others argue that one prototype should never be confused with a modern defense industry capable of producing military equipment at scale. These observations deserve consideration because a single invention cannot replace decades of industrial investment, advanced engineering, quality control, and extensive testing. Judging the project only by its appearance would therefore create unrealistic expectations. At the same time, dismissing the project entirely would overlook its true significance. Abdouah's achievement does not prove that Burkina Faso already possesses a complete defense manufacturing sector. Instead, it demonstrates that skilled local craftsmen are capable of transforming practical experience into original ideas despite severe financial and technical limitations. Every industrial nation began with small experiments, modest workshops, and determined individuals willing to test new concepts long before large factories and research centers existed. Innovation almost always begins with a prototype before evolving into a reliable product. Another criticism claims that encouraging self-reliance may discourage international cooperation or foreign investment. That conclusion is not inevitable. Self-reliance does not mean rejecting partnerships, technology transfer, or outside expertise. It means developing enough domestic knowledge so local engineers, mechanics, and entrepreneurs can participate as capable partners rather than remaining permanently dependent on imported solutions. A balanced strategy combines international cooperation with the steady growth of national capabilities. For that reason, Abdouah's story should be viewed as both an inspiration and a challenge. Inspiration alone cannot create sustainable industries without financing, technical education, product testing, transparent institutions, and long-term planning. Likewise, skepticism alone cannot build a stronger economy if it ignores the creativity already present within local communities. The real question is not whether one homemade vehicle can transform Burkina Faso overnight. The more important question is whether innovators like Abdouah will receive the support needed to improve their designs, collaborate with specialists, and inspire the next generation of inventors. If that happens, one modest workshop could become the starting point of a much larger industrial journey. One important lesson emerging from Abdouah Ouedraogo's experience is that individual talent alone is never enough to build a lasting culture of innovation. A country may have gifted mechanics, engineers, programmers, and craftsmen, but without an ecosystem that supports their ideas, many promising projects will never progress beyond a single prototype. Burkina Faso now faces an opportunity to transform inspiring stories into practical development by creating conditions where local inventors can succeed over the long term. The first requirement is access to technical education and specialized training. Practical experience is valuable, but inventors also benefit from modern engineering methods, design software, product testing, and manufacturing standards. Strengthening vocational schools and encouraging cooperation between experienced craftsmen and young engineers could help bridge the gap between traditional skills and advanced technology. Such partnerships would allow practical knowledge and formal education to reinforce one another instead of competing. The second requirement is sustainable financial support. Many innovators abandon promising projects because they cannot afford equipment, materials, or testing. Small grants, innovation funds, and partnerships with responsible private investors could provide the resources needed to transform ideas into working products. Financial support should be accompanied by mentoring, accountability, and transparent evaluation so that public confidence is maintained while inventors continue improving their designs. A third priority is building stronger connections between workshops, universities, businesses, and government institutions. Innovation rarely succeeds in isolation. Engineers, manufacturers, educators, and entrepreneurs all contribute different expertise that can accelerate development. When these groups cooperate, individual inventions have a greater chance of becoming commercially viable products, capable of creating employment and strengthening local industries. Abdouah's story reminds us that creativity already exists across Burkina Faso. The challenge is not discovering talented people, but creating an environment where their abilities can flourish. By investing in education, financing, research, and collaboration, Burkina Faso could encourage a new generation of innovators whose work extends far beyond a single workshop. In the long run, that ecosystem may become the country's greatest engine of economic resilience, technological progress, and national confidence. Such an ecosystem would also encourage practical knowledge, attract responsible investment, and gradually build public confidence that locally designed solutions can address national challenges while contributing to long-term economic growth. The story of Abdouah Ouedraogo extends beyond the borders of Burkina Faso because it raises questions that many African nations are asking today. Countries such as Mali and Niger face similar challenges, including the need to strengthen local industries, create skilled employment, and reduce long-term dependence on imported technology. Although each nation follows its own development path, they share a common interest in encouraging practical innovation that responds to local needs rather than relying exclusively on external solutions. One important lesson is that industrial development rarely begins with large factories alone. It often starts with skilled individuals working in small workshops, vocational schools, and local businesses. When governments, universities, private companies, and technical institutions cooperate, these individual efforts can gradually evolve into broader industrial capabilities. This approach allows innovation to grow from the ground up while remaining connected to real economic and social needs. Regional cooperation could also play an important role. Burkina Faso, Mali, and Niger have opportunities to exchange technical knowledge, strengthen vocational training, encourage joint research projects, and develop common standards for locally manufactured equipment. Such cooperation does not require every country to produce the same products. Instead, each nation can contribute according to its own strengths while benefiting from shared expertise and experience. The wider Sahel region continues to face significant security and development challenges. For that reason, investments in engineering education, applied research, and local manufacturing may produce benefits that extend beyond economic growth. They can improve resilience, expand employment opportunities, and encourage young people to see innovation as a realistic career path. Abdouah Ouedraogo's experience reminds us that determination already exists within local communities. The challenge is creating partnerships capable of transforming isolated success stories into sustainable progress across the region. If more inventors receive the encouragement, training, and resources they deserve, Burkina Faso and its neighbors could gradually build stronger economies while inspiring future generations to believe that meaningful solutions can also be created in Africa by Africans. Another lesson is that regional success depends on consistency rather than isolated achievements. Governments need predictable policies that encourage entrepreneurs to invest responsibly. Educational institutions should cooperate with industry to develop practical skills. Financial support. The story of Abdouah Ouedraogo reminds us that real change rarely begins with unlimited resources. More often, it begins with one person who decides to use existing knowledge for a greater purpose. His armor-style vehicle may still be only a prototype, but it has already achieved something important. It has encouraged people to discuss innovation, self-reliance, and the value of local talent in Burkina Faso. Whether the project eventually develops further will depend not only on one mechanic, but also on the willingness of institutions, businesses, and communities to support people with practical ideas. This lesson reaches beyond Burkina Faso. Across West Africa and the wider Sahel region, countries are searching for ways to strengthen their economies while creating opportunities for younger generations. Stories like this demonstrate that innovation does not always begin inside major corporations. It can emerge from workshops, vocational schools, and determined individuals who refuse to accept that every solution must come from abroad. The future will depend on balancing inspiration with action. Leaders such as Ibrahim Traore, Assimi Goïta, and Abdourahmane Chiani have all emphasized national development in different contexts, but lasting progress requires education, investment, transparent institutions, and cooperation between governments, universities, and private industry. Regional organizations, including the African Union, also have opportunities to encourage scientific collaboration, technical education, and responsible industrial partnerships across Africa. International partners, including France and other nations, will continue to play important roles through dialogue, trade, investment, and technology exchange. At the same time, strengthening domestic capabilities can help countries become more resilient and confident partners. As Africa News continues to highlight stories of African innovation, Abdouah Ouedraogo's experience serves as a reminder that meaningful progress often starts with ordinary citizens who believe they can contribute to their nation's future. If this story inspired you, share your thoughts in the comments, subscribe to the channel, and join us as we continue exploring remarkable stories shaping Burkina Faso, Mali, Niger, and the future of African innovation. The greatest legacy of this story may not be a single vehicle, but a renewed belief that ordinary citizens can influence extraordinary change. When communities encourage creativity, governments invest in practical skills. We sincerely appreciate your time and support. Every video on this channel is carefully researched, thoughtfully written, and meticulously edited by our dedicated team. We don't rely on automated production or shortcuts to create our content. Every story, every visual, and every detail is crafted with genuine care, passion, and a commitment to bringing you meaningful, high-quality videos.